For some, it feels like a lifetime ago, and for others, it feels like yesterday. This Sunday marks 21 years since the tragic September 11th attacks, which also happens to be the average age of the senior class at Troy. In comes a new generation, one that has no prior knowledge of a pre-9/11 world.
As an instructor, it doesn't just clue me into the importance of bringing history into the political science classroom, but it also points for a need to understand policy.
Dr. Rich Leday is a political science professor at Troy, and as he explains, 9/11 shifted the entire course of his life, academically and beyond.
I shifted my focus to religious extremism, and since then I've been focusing on religion and politics primarily in my research. And then I would later on, once I finished my education, I would later go on to serve in Afghanistan as a field researcher.
Although the most damage occurred in New York, some people forget that there were two other hijackings that day. One plane crashed in a Pennsylvania field and the other hit the Pentagon. In fact, members of Troy's community were at the scene of the Pentagon on that very day when it was hit. Dr. Dwayne Gunn was one of them.
The only way you could have gotten this picture was if you were actually in the Pentagon on 9/11.
Dr. Gunn reveals that even most people at the Pentagon weren't sure that the first plane was an act of terror until the second one hit.
We were actually in a break from the Pentagon orientation. We had the news on, and we had realized that the first tower had been hit, and then we see the second tower get hit while we're watching it on TV. And it's probably at that point people started to think, at least the common individual began to realize that this is something different.
But still, after the attack, most of the Pentagon weren't concerned for their own safety since people thought the attacks were finished. In fact, there was no lockdown procedure or safety precautions at the Pentagon before impact.
This is where the plane hit. And you got to remember that the Pentagon is 5 separate buildings. And what they did was they came over Arlington National Cemetery, and he was increasing speed, he wasn't decreasing speed, and he actually hit between the second and third floor of the 4-story building. So basically that's where the plane hit. And I was just around this corner. Obviously this is at night, but it was during the day. I was somewhere in that general vicinity.
When asked what he hopes students learn from that tragic day, Dr. Gunn gave advice of perseverance and moving on.
Just because an incident like this happens doesn't mean that you completely change your life forever and ever.
Simon Schussler, Troy, TrojanVision News.